Make a Path presents Let's Talk.
Let's talk. The Walking Dead. Whose funeral is it? Alright, Deadheads, listen, episode 9 is right around the corner, but I just wanted to make this video to touch on something real quick. A few weeks ago when I was going to bed, I had this thought, how awesome would it be if they're showing us what we think is Beth's funeral when in fact it's a flash forward to Tyrese's funeral. I'm like, wow, that's such an amazing idea. I am on to something. I woke up, I looked over the footage. Clearly we could see that Glenn is in episode 8 shirt, the red one. Rick is in episode 8 shirt. And later we see them with Tyrese in episode 9 clothing after the time skip, because there's going to be that time skip. So then I was like, well, that theory is debunked, but it might be only partially debunked, because now we're hearing reports of we might see familiar faces. How can we have familiar faces? There's no one left alive but Morgan, which he's not meeting up with them. He's too far away. Guys, remember, unless they stay in one spot and don't move for a few weeks, Morgan can't catch up with them, because they showed him in flash forward. And Morales, I mean, that just, it's so unrealistic for them to find Morales on the road. And his family, because they said faces. But then my social media, The Walking Dead fan that I talked to, Ishi, he was saying that it might be hallucinations. And I was like, well, there we go. That's effing stupid that the reporter would say we're going to see familiar faces when they're talking about dead people, because that has happened. I don't think any of us has canceled out seeing a flashback from Herschel. We're always talking about it. Or Beth. Actually, you know what? The governor. I did mention in the last Q&A that why would we even see him in flashbacks? But now that we see a flashback of Woodbury and the prison, it had in that dream-like montage in the beginning 2 minutes, we might even see a hallucination of the governor, so I take that back. Well, not a flashback, but a hallucination, so we might see these familiar faces. Why would we? Why is it a dreamlike state? Then it hit me. The images they show us in the preview and the sneak peek, look at how it's set up. We see a doorway with blood on it. There's just clothes all over the ground outside, and it looks like something violent happened here, like the walkers or whatever. Later, we see in the trailer that Tyrese and Noah are at that doorway. So when we saw the doorway in like a flash forward in the dreamlike state, we saw it without Tyrese and Noah. This was without them getting there. Later, we see them there. I talked about this in my prediction video also. Then we see in the trailer, we saw Tyrese and Noah, Glenn, Michonne, Rick walking in the woods past those pile of bones. And remember I said, oh, Tyrese looked at the bones. Maybe it's foreshadowing. But check this out. Then we see in the montage the bones in the 2-minute preview. But the crew isn't walking past it. It's like and this is in the beginning of episode 9, the first 2 minutes. They showed the bones in the montage. It's a dreamlike state. And remember, we're all predicting, spoiler alert right now, but it's a prediction, not a spoiler. We're predicting Tyrese is gonna go. Now look at all these scenes they're showing us with Tyrese later on in the episode. We're seeing in the 2-minute montage that's a dreamlike state. It's showing us these glimpses, images of places they're going to be later in the episode. So if it is a hallucination, if this is a dreamlike state, is this Tyrese, once he's bitten, having the fever? Looking back and having these images. Maybe it's not a dream-like state. It's not a dream at all. It's Tyrese fighting the fever, maybe. Ishi's idea about how maybe Tyrese is hallucinating the governor and Herschel. That's what he said. That's the familiar faces. So I took his idea and I sat back and thought, well, if he's hallucinating the governor and Herschel because he has the fever, maybe he's hallucinating we might not see it through his eyes, like point of view, but maybe those scenes and clips and everything else they're showing us is the Tyrese hallucinating. Because they're showing us scenes in the first 2 minutes of places we're going to get to in Shire Wilt or later in episode 9, and Tyrese is in those every single scene. You get what I'm saying? You follow along? Real quick, I noticed I forgot to answer the question that was on everyone's mind. Whose funeral is it? Beth's, Tyrese, or both? I personally am just going to say screw it. I'm going to go with a very specific prediction, which I should not do. You should keep it general so you always sound smarter. I believe the one by the willow tree is in fact Beth because they're wearing episode 8 clothing. Now when they're shoveling the dirt up close when we don't see any characters, that might be them shoveling the dirt into Tyrese's funeral. So I'm thinking there might be 2 funerals at the beginning showing 2 different scenes from it. And Tyrese's fever is going to be kind of spliced at times throughout, either just the beginning heavily or heavily in the beginning in the montage time skip, and then throughout the episode, and it will blend with the ending of Tyrese dying, which will bring the beginning of the episode and the end of the episode together possibly. This way the beginning has Beth's funeral by the willow tree with images of them putting dirt in Tyrese's burial or funeral, and the end will close with maybe now maybe an image or 2 of Beth's funeral, or maybe coming out of Beth's funeral, and then we're going to show them at Tyrese's funeral to kind of like put an exclamation mark on death, on losing, on losses, on that hardship, because they want to beat these characters down. The Walking Dead detective, I'm out of here. That is an awesome friggin' idea. I love that. I love it already. And Chad Coleman was in an interview and people were saying, oh, he sounds like he's talking in past tense and everything. And that might be very true. And I was like, oh, he seems stoned. But he was looking back on episode 9 like it was so profound. And that might be because his character has a very artistic death coming. You know what I mean? In the way that they display it visually. Deadheads, leave your ideas and opinions down below. I'm done talking. It's your turn.
Subscribe now.